Belmont, Wisconsin. Speed limit 0. Hey, I'm Will Buchanan, and I'm walking all the way across the country to New Hampshire for more freedom on a project called the Walk for Liberty. Today is October 5th, 2008, day 154. I'm taking a little shortcut to New Hampshire today. I've always assumed that farmers and other people living out in the country are net receivers when it comes to the roads, i.e. that the cost to maintain the roads in front of where they live is greater than the proportion of the property taxes which they pay to maintain the roads. This would be in contrast to people in towns and cities who would most likely be net donors. Although I certainly don't know for sure if this is the case. The reason why I think it's a reasonable assumption is due to the fact that there are many more miles of roads per person out in the country than there are miles of road per person in towns. So, assuming that it is the case that people living out in the country are net receivers in terms of the roads, it seems that the only way to convince them of giving up the position that the government should be responsible for the roads would be with a moral argument. Or is it? Perhaps there is a practical argument to be made as well. I've been assuming for the sake of this discussion that people living in the country are net receivers when it comes to roads. But behind that assumption lies another hidden assumption. That the government is actually doing the best, most cost-effective job when it comes to maintaining the roads. But perhaps that's not the case, and that people out in the country could actually do better. Let's say, for example, that person A, who lives out in the country, pays $3,000 per year in property taxes. $1,000 of which goes toward maintaining the roads. However, let's say the government actually spends an average of $1,500 every year to maintain the roads alongside their property. So it would seem that that person is a net recipient of $500 per year in road funds. If, however, that person were responsible himself for maintaining the roads alongside his property, since he's incentivized to get more competitive bids, or perhaps just because he doesn't need as fancy of a road, he might very well be able to get the job done for half the amount the government was spending, or an average of $750 a year, or perhaps even less. So because he had been paying $1,000 a year in property taxes toward the roads, he had actually been a net donor of $250 or more per year to the cause of government waste. One argument that could be made, though, is that the government is actually acting as some sort of insurance agent. Since road maintenance is usually not done just a little bit every year, but rather generally involves great expense once every several years, the government is effectively spreading out the cost to each person over a number of years through property taxes. However, that problem too can easily be solved by the free market. One example could be road maintenance agencies which could collect a nominal amount of money every year. And then, once the road next to the person's property falls below a certain level of disrepair, as ascertained by an independent third-party company, the road maintenance agency would then come in and bring the road back up to spec. And depending on how heavily traveled the road is, the person living out in the country might be able to make out even more by being responsible for maintaining the road themselves, since they could then charge the people and/or businesses who travel on the road, either by collecting the money themselves or, more likely, by outsourcing the collection to a third-party company. If people were responsible for maintaining their own roads, it would ultimately benefit everyone. Well, everyone that is, except the people in the highway department bureaucracy. I walked 20 2/3 miles today. And here are my GPS coordinates. This is Will Buchanan for Amazon.walkforliberty.com, signing off.
This is Will's little late night snack that he usually has.
I have to open my jaw.
Like a python. How is it?
Excellent.